Hey, just kind of want to do a quick little demo to go through accessing the chassis as well as some of the features on your Dagobah Dual Master Replicas version Yoda hilt. So here's your short Yoda hilts. Installed it on an illuminated NeoPix connector up there using a CC Sabers connector. I've installed the green LED button tops here, and under each of them there's a NeoPixel accent. So there's a single NeoPixel accent here, and here there's the switch PCB, which I cut down. So on this one, the blade retention is up here in front. I also do use this as kind of a chassis guide over there. So to access the chassis, just unscrew the pommel. And this is a one-piece chassis, so I need to remove the entire thing. So to access the chassis, you actually want to push against the rim of the chassis up here and the emitter. You kind of don't want to be touching the pogo pin, so just push against the rim of it. Make sure that the saber is facing down, because you want the plunger, the control plate, to be loose. That way it doesn't catch on anything as you're pushing the chassis out. So just carefully slide the chassis out and make sure that this control box, or the screws under the control box, don't catch on anything, because it might actually rip some things apart. So here's your fully removable chassis. You got your illuminated NeoPix connector up there. We have our SN Pixel V4 soundboard over here. We got USB-C charging as well as the kill switch. I'll need to talk about the kill switch later. We have one NeoPixel accent, which lines up with this shine through LED button top over there. We got our switch PCB, which I cut down. It's got the 2 pixels. The top pixel here aligns with the green LED bezel up there. And then 2 switches. Over here we have an 18500 battery with a 1500 milliamp hour capacity. So basically about half of the capacity of a normal 18650 battery. And then here we have our 22mm bass speaker, which is kind of enclosed in there for some better sound quality. So in terms of the kill switch itself, so what I've noticed is that if you were to flip the kill switch off, even if the board is in kind of hibernate mode, and if you turn it back on, it doesn't kind of wake back up. If you flip the kill switch off and turn it back on, you're gonna have to plug in the USB-C to kind of like reset the board. So that's just something to keep in mind. For the 18500 battery, you can just remove it. I like digging my thumb fingernail in there and then just removing it from there. I'm not gonna remove it right now because there might be the board might have a difficult time of restarting back up without the USB-C. So I'll just leave it in there for now. When inserting the chassis, you'll notice that there's kind of like a channel there, which lines up with this switch PCB. And you also notice there's kind of like an indent there, right where the NeoPixel connector is. So inside the hilt, I'm actually using the screw for this greebly. I'm not sure if it picks up on camera, but it protrudes into the hilt a little bit. So basically I'm using that as a chassis guide mechanism, and it lines up with this indent there. That way, once you fully insert the chassis, it doesn't actually rotate, so it keeps the screws under the control box aligned with these tactile switches. So let's go over actually inserting the chassis into the saber, because that's a little bit of a challenge I find. So when inserting the chassis, make sure that the hilt is facing down, because the plunger switches there are actually just screws mounted onto this plate, and it's loose. So you want to make sure that it's facing down so it kind of falls and not catching on anything. And then you want to insert the chassis with the channel facing down. We want to align this channel with the control box. And then when you're inserting, try not to touch the pogo pins against any metal surface. That's something to watch out for any fully removable chassis with pogo pins. So I like to make sure to insert it about here, make sure it's not catching on anything. and then just push it in, so it should slide all the way in like that. And then to lock it in, just screw the pommel on. One thing I also noticed is that this pommel does have pretty thin threads, so you want to make sure that you're screwing it. As you're screwing it on, you're not actually cross-threading anything, and that it's screwing on smoothly. You don't want to damage the threads on these.
Power on.
So that's waking it up from the hibernate mode into kind of standby mode. Got your smooth swing. Got accent swing. On the SM Pixel V4, the accent swings are kind of a little bit snappier compared to like Profi, for example. Got your main switch up there. So that handle is kind of like turning off the saber, turning it on, as well as the auxiliary switch down here, so under the LED. So just tap there for like auxiliary effects like Flash and Block. So let's put a blade in here. So because I don't have a short test blade for a 7/8 inch blade, I'm actually using a pretty full-length 36 inch long 7/8 inch diameter blade. That's a bit of a mouthful. So once you have your blade inserted, the retention screw is up there. I'm using a about 1.3 millimeter Allen wrench because the retention screw is kind of small. I need to check if the kit actually came with an Allen wrench, but if it doesn't, then just make sure you use a 1.3 millimeter Allen wrench, I believe. So one thing you need to make sure is that when you're pressing the buttons, you want to make sure that you're pressing like the top most part of the switch plate or the bottom-most part, because both the screw plungers are on the same plate. So if you press the middle, you might actually trigger both buttons at the same time. So just make sure you're pressing against the very bottom or the very top of the switch plate. I'm not gonna swing it around too much, but so another thing I kind of want to mention is that because these LED switch bezels are green, if you were to change colors or change to a different sound font, so something like that, it actually, so the underlying pixels will show as like blue or red or white or whatever it is, but then the LED switch bezel would kind of skew it towards a green. So that's just kind of something to look into, or that's just something to be aware of as you're changing colors. So there's the install on the Dagobah Dual, or at least one half of the Dagobah Dual pair, specifically just the Master Replicas version, the Yoda hilt. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I'll also be including the 18500 battery with this as I ship it out to you. So I'm going to finalize some things on the saber, and I'll get this shipped out to you as soon as possible. And as always, thank you so much for letting me work on this, and may the Force be with you.